Hello, everyone. Thanks again for listening in on another episode of The Impulsive Thinker. This is André, and I got here a good friend of mine, Dr. Brandie Nemchenko. She's the CEO and founder of the Experience Chiropractic and also the clinical director of Bloom. How are you doing today, Brandie?
Doing great. How are you doing, Andre?
So far, so good. I'm looking forward to this because we are definitely two peas in the pod with ADHD, or ADD as some people call it. Can you just give us a bit of a background of your entrepreneurial experience or about your chiropractic firm and about this Bloom?
Yeah, so that's awesome. So in 2002, I graduated from chiropractic school and I got into it in a very weird way. I was a former paramedic. That's how I started out, which with ADD is like the best job ever.
One of them, yeah.
Started in an associateship where I worked with professional athletes at Bally's and Golds in my area, and then decided to venture out on my own, which was very successful. And we've added doctors, and now we have 2 offices in this area. So I developed the program Bloom in 2006 after I almost lost my daughter, who is now 14, my child who's 14, and developed a program for pregnancy. So it really switched. I applied athletic principles to pregnancy so that they could get the best results and be active throughout their pregnancy.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, and a lot of people can put those two together.
It's like putting like tuna fish and peanut butter together.
Yeah.
But like, there's nobody who deserves to be better, equipped to deal with their life. We can get an athlete back on the field in a couple of minutes, back in the game. Why shouldn't we do that for somebody that's expecting that they can do their job? Like I think because we think differently, we're able to put 2 things together that might, like bacon and chocolate, who would know that tastes good together, but it does. So it's the same thing with sort of sports medicine and pregnancy.
Yeah, basically take 2 separate things that don't make sense to be together, and then we find a way to definitely make it right and correct.
Like me and my husband. So. My husband's like the most routine person ever, and then I'm like we're like a Eminem and Rihanna song. So
yeah, your husband's a linear thinker,
very
linear, and then the ADHD brain's very divergent, where it's all over the place, and then we definitely see the world and things differently. Definitely the stuff that doesn't make sense to be together, but we have a way to make it connect.
It's cool.
And then prove it that it works.
Yeah.
And I know for me, it's a struggle to explain to people how I can make A and Z B, right?
Yeah. It's so cool. I think it's a gift. I think it's definitely a struggle for us. There's certainly a lot that's a struggle, but there's a lot of gifts. I think that I'd rather be like we are, even though sometimes it's painful in business, and to be business.
I just went through my psychiatrist, and I'm thinking, if this is how neurotypicals live, it's boring.
Yes.
It's slow. We're
like in Technicolor. Have you heard the new music where you can hear it in like 8? I think it's like 8D or something like that. It's like you can hear in Technicolor, and I think that's how we live our lives. But it's just misunderstood.
Misunderstood. Do you want to expand more on that?
Yeah, I mean, like as a child, I learned to read at 3, and during school, like I was like the class clown. I was like, I love to draw in class. I love to like entertain people around me, and I spent a lot of time in the guidance office because they thought I was learning disabled, and I just wouldn't retain stuff. I wouldn't interpret stuff the way that they wanted me to. So in 5th grade, they tested me to put me in some learning disabled classes, and they found that I was actually a genius. And
gifted.
My mom, gifted. Yep. And I think my IQ was like 162, and my mom asked them to do it again, which that was a lot of therapy because as a kid to like, there's a part you want your parents to think you're smart, and there's different types of being smart. So they did retest me, and thank God for that program because they taught in a different way than traditional schools. So it was more of like a Montessori type thing where I was able to procrastinate. And now I know why I procrastinate. So like actually walking onto the field of high school, they said, you won't graduate if you don't turn in this paper. I had it tucked up in my graduation gown sleeve. That's what I'm saying. We like take things to the limit where it's like, I'm going to turn this on in as I walk on the field. And people think that's funny, or that you're like a scatterbrain or whatever. We get it done. We still get it done. It just may be differently than other people interpret. So
it's completely different. It's usually last minute. We create an urgency, so our brain gets fired on all cylinders and we can hyper focus. And especially with stuff that does not interest us, makes it even more challenging to get into a hyper focus to get it done. I just want to touch more about, okay, you got a higher IQ, which would have masked your ADHD symptoms. Because if you're smart, back then when we were kids, if you were smart, you did not have ADHD. And then the other thing, you touched on it, because my daughter's in gifted, and I'm reading a lot about adult giftedness, because like ADHD and giftedness, they all thought you grew out of it, right? But it's not true. You have it for your whole life. And the thing is with the giftedness is that it's not that we're smarter. We just process information differently and quickly. And if that's not satisfied during school, I'm the same thing with you, get in trouble, a lot of principal visits, disruptive. But as long as I'm intellectually engaged, I'm no longer a nuisance, right? And so it's good that you have the program, because my daughter's in the gifted program, and it's a lot of it is interest-based learning. And then she's excelling it stupendously. And what also helps, I'm just going to assume it helps you too, Brandie, is that you're amongst people that understood how the brain, like they were like your cohorts, because we don't have to explain how it is. We're all gifted. We process and learn differently. And it was nice to be in a room of people that were like you, right?
Yeah, strategic coach has literally saved my life. And I don't say that lightly, because I was at a point where I'm not going to cry on this podcast. I was about to quit because I was surrounded by friends who didn't work and who were like, I don't understand why you work so hard. I don't know why you're so driven and why you just can't drink with us, or, and all that's fine and good, but they didn't understand the drive that I had. At work, I alluded to this on the last strategic coach call. There's a lot of backlash for our personalities, where people think we're flakes, or we are scatterbrains or weak because of the way that we are. Like, I still joke. I'm very, very serious about my business, but I'll send memes to my team, or like, I'll stop this really concrete, brilliant thought and shoot someone a meme, because I thought about it, of like how it pertains to what I'm working on, just to allay the tension of like appearing too smart. You know what I'm saying? Just to bring myself down a notch.
Right. Yep.
But the feedback that you get to be successful, most people are, I think they said 85% of people are not wired like us. So when you're not like that, it's sort of that swan story where we're like a swan and we're hanging out with chickens. Yeah. And the chickens actually say like, why are you like you are? And I was at a point where my business rose so quickly, that ceiling, I'd exceeded my cover of the comfortableness of like being able to deal with that level of business. And when I started opening other offices, all the wheels came off. All the wheels came off. And it was like, I was started working 16-hour days. At the time, my daughter had left for college, who was like the entire center of my universe. My other child, because they're non-binary. My other child was just diagnosed with autism. They're gifted and autistic. And my husband has Asperger's as well. So it's like that side has Asperger's, very quiet, very methodical, very concrete. And the person who was like me left. And so I threw myself into work because I thought like, I need to do something. I need to be worth something. I need to be, I need to do to cover this pain of my daughter leaving and my other child being diagnosed with autism. So it was just sort of the perfect storm of lighting on fire. Because I wanted to build the other daughter a nest. Like never cared about money. I've been very, very successful, but like money doesn't excite me. Freedom does, but that lit me on fire. Like, oh shit, I have to take care of her, take care of them, and make sure they're safe and be responsible. André, I don't know if you can, we're having a lot of fun with practice and stuff like that, or our businesses, that money is not, sometimes it's just getting stuff done, or seeing our visions come to fruition. So,
oh yeah. If for me, if money was the driving force, I'd be a lot more richer than I am now. But like, you're right. It's freedom of money, freedom of time, freedom of relationships, and freedom of purpose. And for me, it's always achieving goals, next one, and I think that has a lot to do with their ADHD. Once the thrill is gone of achieving it, we got to do something more to stay alive, quote unquote. But the one thing you really said, which I think we need to discuss more, like you said, strategic coach saved you. And for me too, it took me a long time to realize why I liked the place. And it had to do with the fact is me being a gifted adult, ADHD, I'm also on the Asperger spectrum, and gifted is that everyone in that group, I need intellectual stimulation, not just the stimulation of doing something. It has to be intellectual at the same time. That's where I really enjoy conversations with you, because not only that it's goofy and fun, but it's also at the same time serious, and there's a lot of intellectual thought behind our goofiness, right? And that's what I really love about it. And being around the right people is definitely key to us growing and be successful. Like for me, my immediate family I was not black sheep, so that was not a good group to be around. They were pretty negative. The group of friends I had in high school was the same deal. University, I got lucky. I got around a group of ambitious, high achieving people. But then when I got into the working world, I got into friendships like you that weren't very supportive of the drive, and having to explain why I'm different got tiring.
Yeah, it's exhausting, and it makes you feel one of the big things that I hate is being judged. I hate I've done a lot of growth where before I would think what's wrong with me or how could I have molded myself. I'm a very good chameleon in terms of, I think I get that from being a paramedic, is like I can meet somebody where they're at and sort of model their energy, but it drains my batteries. And I think during COVID, my batteries, like I talked to you about, like I was in a really dark place before I joined Coach, because it's like, I am sick of explaining that I actually know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I built an over $1 million business. So please don't say I'm stupid. Like I kept bringing in help of a pseudo integrator. At the time, I didn't know what an integrator was, but somebody that could be meticulous. And I'm very self-aware that I know what my flaws are. But like I would get somebody on their second day say, you're the most laid back perfectionist I've ever met. As they sat there and waited for me for 2 hours to explain what I meant, instead of having the drive or the initiative. And so I was not getting the help that I needed and getting insulted at the same time. And I understand now my role in that I using an impact filter or, explaining what I mean, that most people are not on our level. And I don't mean that in an elitist way, but they're not on our frequency that they would understand.
No, because we're visionaries.
Right.
We do not see, like we have a vision in our mind, and we have to communicate that to the integrator to make it real.
Right.
And that's the challenge. And then what's going on in our mind and our visions are, talking to linear minded people. And I get the same thing. I said, you're not following the rules of accounting or making decisions on these numbers. You're just doing whatever the hell you want. And that's wrong. I said, well, if it's wrong, then why am I where I'm at?
Yeah. Amen.
Right. Like there are rules there. There's certain general rules. It works for everyone, but if it doesn't fit my style or doesn't fit what I need, I look at for example, I'm supposed to look at 5 certain numbers in my financial reports as per my accountant and all the books out there. And I kept getting into trouble. So I decided, I think it's more important if I look at this and this and this. And everyone says, you're crazy. You don't need to know how many work orders you got this week or how many invoices you had or how much you have in your bank account. But it's like, after a couple of months, all I need to do is look at those 5 weird ass numbers that everyone says you don't need. But I never got in trouble again because they're all early warning signs I can pick up. But it's just the way I received the information. Yeah. It's not typical.
Yeah.
Right. And then having to justify it is, like you said, it's a waste of energy. It's
insulting. I think it's insulting. Like we're the boss. And
right.
I think we're both very nice people. And it's like people who seemingly have, I don't know if I can pass on this post, but seemingly have their stuff together, right? They come across more self-assured, less self-aware, right? That they know they're better than us. And it's like there's no respect. And it's like if somebody has not worked with somebody like us, they don't see our gifts because they have their S together. more than we do, in the traditional sense. They're more corporate or more business. And it's like
they have their stuff more together that's perceived in a general society
way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And just don't get us wrong here, listeners. We're not saying that we don't if we're wrong, we're open to be telling us that we're wrong. Like if we're making a mistake, or you have more knowledge on something and run it by us, we're all ears.
But please don't think we're stupid. Like that's
exactly.
If we're disrespectful and go to like personal attacks. It's just, my husband is from Russia, and as I said, he has learning disabilities as well. Was a medical doctor, became a chiropractor, very successful. And one of the things he says is there's no such thing as a bad student, only bad teachers.
Yes.
And I find that most people, that's why I actually like 10X better than strategic coach, because and it's interesting. I had a meeting with somebody who does virtual assistant, and he's like, I hate TEDx because it was like, it's not as like, it's more big picture and foo-foo and like more idea driven and
visionary.
And that's purely my role. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is from Dan, because I have the same Colby as Dan, except I'm off by one number, but like Dan is the head of strategic coach, is if I have resistance to something, it means I'm not the best person to do it. It's not because I'm stupid or I'm lazy, which is where my mind goes. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you're used to doing it, but my batteries, I can't do, the 99 miles per hour anymore. It's not, I don't have a life. So it's like, yeah.
And that's what happened to me about 5 years ago with my life tempest. And that's where I was diagnosed with ADHD, and that's where my symptoms took control. And it was like you phrased it beautifully. It was when you said that you got to a certain success level with your companies, and then you could no longer mask or cover up these quote unquote disorders or shortfalls, which just means like it's self-awareness and saying, I can't do it. And then getting the help. And that's right. So a lot of these high achieving ADHD entrepreneurs is we get to a certain point that we can master, especially with the intellect that we have, our drive that we have for success.
Coffee
is fantastic. But we get to a certain point that we can't mask it anymore or look like we have it together as in the eyes of the typical society norms. And that's when my growth started going, is that like we've talked about this many times, hiring people to do things you're not good at and things you don't want to do is key. And then, but like you're saying, I never realized this till now, but having to justify and explain why I don't want to do certain things, or I do it in a certain way, it's exhausting.
The judgment is just, it's insulting to me. And I'm starting to come into, because I'm super nice. Like if I'm mean to you, you handed me some scissors. You handed me some scissors a couple times for me to be angry with you or cut you off. And I don't want to be a bad boss. Like I don't want to be a bad leader. I don't want to create tension. And when somebody that you're paying a lot of money has an attitude toward you, that you're a misfit or you're an idiot or you're like should be on the island of misfit toys, that's doubly insulting. And it just nearly broke me, because I actually worked with an organization that they are specifically geared to work with CEOs. And the amount of trauma that I got from working with that organization is it messes with your head, because you feel like nobody understands. I'm 48 years old. I have multiple businesses, and it preys on, sorry to get real with you, it preys on that 5th grade student or that 10-year-old that like literally brings back that you're a moron and there's something really wrong with you. And I've been very depressed, because if they can't work with you, then and the insult, and they don't mean to do that, but like you don't fit into their box, that means that you're less than, and then you're not helpable. It's devastating. So that's why I've thrown myself into strategic coach or 10X to understand myself more. Because I'm like you are, you work your ass off for your job. Do you know what I'm saying? And we're very hard workers. We care about what we're doing. We care about the products and services we provide. It's not a negative. We're not doing bad in the world, but yet people treat us like complete shit. And I just, that's very hard to find people, but if you find that squad, you have to like hold on to them.
Oh yeah, huge. And I think this is a great summary here is, you know, I've always challenged, and I guarantee you the listener here, the majority of you guys have challenged trying to find the right people to be around that were uplifting and supportive, right? Having, like Dr. Hollowell says, having the right spouse will make or break an ADHD person, because like my wife, very, very patient, understanding. But, and like you is with 10X myself, this last year, I just finally decided or convinced myself or believed in myself to say that I am worthy of being around these people. And they're very welcoming. But if you're not welcoming yourself, it's hard to be welcomed by others. But definitely to surround yourself with the right people that wants to understand, but you don't have to explain yourself every time, right? So like for us, like surrounding yourself with other entrepreneurs of similar mindset. So you can be around other high achieving entrepreneurs that may not have the same mindset. Like you touched on this, Brandie, you got the signature program and then you got the 10X program, strategic coach. Those are two different mindsets. We want to 10X our business. So to do that, we have to think big and be ambitious. While a lot of the people in signature are okay with 2X, nothing wrong with it, but it's just, it's a different mindset. And being around, if you got a 10X mindset and being around a 2X mindset, it's not the same thing. You're not going to have the same conversations. Like a lot of them were telling me to stop being ambitious, right? So surround yourself with your own people that understands you. I think is a big, big one. And I'm really glad that we brought up with this being around the right people and friendships. So with all your experience, what is the one piece of advice you can give to our listeners?
Oof. I would say to love yourself more, like, and understand that not everybody has all the gifts. Like you can't, I think a lot of us entrepreneurs, you had to be everything.
In the beginning, yes. Yeah.
You can do everything, right? You can do everything because you have to do everything. But understanding when you have resistance, it's not because of the gap that Dan talks about. It's not because you're a bad person. Not everybody's batteries are going to be charged or drained in the same way. So if you can really articulate what charges your batteries and stay there, otherwise you're going to be a burned out crisp. Like I was. Yeah. You're not serving your business by forcing yourself cruelly to overcome your weaknesses and prove to people. I think that's my biggest driver. If somebody tells me I can't do something or that I'm too stupid to do it, I'm gonna show you.
Prove it. Yeah.
I'll make it 10X.
Yeah.
And I've done that where people have not believed me, and you have to believe in yourself. Everybody has gifts, and you're here for a reason, and you have certain gifts that other people don't have. That's what Marie Forleo says, is like, you know, there's gifts that only you have. There's a reason that you're here, and nobody has their shit together. If somebody acts like they have their shit together, they're a liar, because we all don't have our shit together all the time. So just focus on what lights you up, figure out how you can give back to the world and give back to the people around you, and find a strong tribe that gets you. That's been my success. My biggest advice this year, my New Year's resolution was, I will not allow anything in my life that is not a hell yes. And that has served me better than any weight loss resolution or money resolution. Is like, you deserve the best. And if it's not, the best for you could be anything that you want it to be. If it doesn't feel right, I'm not doing. If it's just like a yes, I don't want it. I want a hell yes life. And that's it.
That's a great way to end it. Do what's best for you. And you don't have to justify it if you want it. Just set the goal as what's best for you. I like that. Well, Brandie, I think we reached the end of our time here. I think two things that we got to walk away from here. Surround yourself with the right people. Surround yourself with the right mindset. There could be two different groups of people there. And do what's best for you first. And if it's not an all in, then like the ADHD mind, then you better be all out and do not talk yourself into trying it. So based on that, I'd like to hear from you, the listeners, is what is your big goal that's a best all hell yeah in for you. I don't think that made absolutely any sense. What
No.
do you want to do that is best for you that you're getting some resistance from others? And then all my comeback will be then, who cares what they say? If it's what you want, do it.
Make it happen. Yeah.
All right. Thanks again for listening. And we'll be back to you with another short episode on Thursday. And thanks again for listening. Talk to you soon.